It has been more than 30 years since Megan Kanka was murdered. So many remember her name and the horrible way she was killed. And the smile.
Yeah, the 7-year-old girl from New Jersey became the motivation behind Megan's Law, enacted exactly 30 years ago. It notifies the public about child sex offenders. CBS Philadelphia investigative reporter Liz Crawford talked exclusively with Megan's parents about the legacy their little girl left behind.
Why don't you give Megan a big hug and kiss?
Never before seen home videos from one of Megan Kanka's last Christmases. Christmas of '92. She was just a normal 5-year-old. The whole country would know her name 2 years later.
I don't want to see this happen to any one of your children. I want you to scare your children. I want you to tell them.
Maureen Kanka will forever be known as Megan's mom. In the summer of 1994, about 30 yards away, in a house across the street from her own, Maureen's 7-year-old daughter was murdered. Somehow, in the midst of her anguish, Maureen and her husband Rich became trailblazers in our country's new crusade to protect children.
I promised my baby today that until my dying death, we would get the legislation so that this will never, ever happen to anybody's child again.
Her parents said Megan Kanka was known for riding her bike in her Hamilton Township, New Jersey neighborhood, picking flowers and smiling at strangers. She was a 90s child, innocent and free. On July 29, 1994, 33-year-old Jesse Temendiquaz, a man who lived across the street, lured Megan into his house by offering to show her his puppy. He then raped and murdered her. CBS News Philadelphia cameras caught this footage of Temendiquaz with his dog 1 day after the murder, just feet away from Megan's parents. He was convicted and sentenced to death. New Jersey abolished the death penalty in 2007. He's serving a life sentence. More than 30 years later, Maureen and Rich Kanka still live in the home they shared with Megan. Pictures of their children and grandchildren over the years displayed in frames. Pictures of Megan frozen in time at age 7.
We have 3 wonderful grandsons, and we see them a whole lot. And we enjoy every minute that we have with them.
The Kankas said they're grateful to be able to spoil their grandsons and enjoy quality time with their daughter and son, Megan's 2 older siblings.
It's tough. The kids, you know, even though they were 9 and 11 at the time, it's tough for them too. You know, there's always a conversation that we have about, you know, what could have been, you know, and it really, really plays on them, and it bothers them to this day. So,
you know, would she be married now? Would she have children? What would she be like? And for me, she was a little me. She looked like me at that age.
They said the pain never goes away. They've just learned to live with it.
I never expected or could understand how something like this could happen to anybody. And when Megan was raped and murdered by a neighbor, I realized how little I knew about my neighborhood.
When Maureen and Rich Kanka learned the man who murdered Megan was a convicted sex offender who had served prison time, they said they had to do something.
That was really our mission, you know, because we felt that if we knew about the danger across the street, we wouldn't let the kids outside by themselves.
Megan was gone, but just a few months later, October of 1994, Megan's Law was born. First in New Jersey.
Government cannot legislate away the problem of sexual offenses, but Megan's Law demonstrates our best efforts to minimize the likelihood of repeat offenders.
And later, a federal law requiring law enforcement to make information available to the public regarding sex offenders, including online registries. 30 years of protecting children.
Somebody said to me, well, how do you know it's working? Well, we don't know it's working. We just know about the ones that got away. The ones, you'll never know who you saved, but you always know the ones that you didn't save.
Not just through public awareness about nearby criminals, but conversations with kids we just weren't having back then. It was a directive from Maureen 3 decades ago.
Don't sugarcoat it. tell them what happens to little children by sex offenders.
And to this day, her message and mission is still the same. Honor Megan by protecting children.
It was Megan's legacy. It's what she left behind. Megan's Law. Megan's legacy, Megan's Law.
And what a legacy it was.
Indeed.
You know, in addition to the federal law, all states now have their own versions of Megan's Law.
How about that?
Yeah, and you know, it was all those years ago, such a big story, and it really did change the country.
I know everybody knows the name Megan Kanka around here. I actually shared with the Kankas that I was the same exact age as Megan when she was killed. I grew up just 5 miles from there.
Wow.
So at 7 years old myself, I remember my parents putting a pink bow out on our front porch. That's what everyone was doing to show support, and my mom talking with me a bit about what happened, and it had an impact, and that was one of so many teachable conversations that parents now have with their kids because of Megan Kanka.
That's probably clear as day to you.
Oh, I never forgot it. I remember the puppy and, you know, just how horrible those details were.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing her story and everything that has been done and your connection.